So iPhone 17 versus iPhone 16 Pro, which is the better choice? I've had the iPhone 17 for nearly a month already, and I'm ready to help you decide which is actually the better phone, since they are close in price now that you can get this secondhand on the 16 Pro, or you could just go with a brand new 17, and there's a lot of overlap here. Let's find out which is better. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And first of all, let's just talk about the price. The iPhone 16 Pro actually could run you more if you went with a higher storage tier of this phone, even now. But usually you can find them secondhand now for even cheaper than a brand new 17, but pretty close. They're not too far off. The 17 is a good price point at the base tier, but as you do go up in the storage, it does become closer to $1,000. So this phone to me is only great value at the base entry 256 gig storage, which is a really good deal because before they were offering phones at that price with like 64 gigs in the past. So this is a much better option than prior base model phones. But what is different and what is the same? Well, we'll start with what's the same here. They both do have always on displays. That's basically the same. That's a new thing for the 17. Both have the same dynamic island. Both have the same thin bezels. Both do have the same basic shape. They both have action buttons. They both have camera control buttons. And they both have basically the same power buttons. They both have USB-C, same amount of holes down there for the microphone and speakers. And they both are about the same height here. So they're essentially the same phone, but what is different? Well, it's basically the triple camera setup versus the dual camera setup here. And also the iPhone 17 does have aluminum body. This one has titanium body. So better cameras, titanium body is the real change here. Well, we can't say better cameras. We have to say triple camera, more options have you. Those are basically the similarities and differences here between both of them. But we'll dive a little bit deeper here. Let's go on to talk about the bodies and the build. So with the iPhone 17, you are looking at a substantially lighter 177 grams versus 199 grams. Basically, it's an ounce or so lighter than the iPhone 16 Pro. So it's basically a lighter 16 Pro, which is really nice. Ceramic shield glass on the front here, and they both have glass backs. This one does have grade 5 titanium though, so it definitely feels more premium to hold on the edges. But the iPhone 17 is a bit lighter for having that aluminum. Both are eSIM only, but generally what I have to state is it's just really down to, do you like the dual camera look and the aluminum shell for a lighter build, or do you like the triple camera look and the titanium for a more premium build right here? Let me know your thoughts about that down below. I tend to prefer the titanium. I think it looks nicer overall, but some people are still going to love the color options, the lighter iPhone 17, and the fact that it is basically cheaper for essentially what is mostly the same phone. But for me, I do think when we're talking about which is better, the 16 Pro is the better material. That's just the bottom line. But they both are IP68 dust and water resistance, but the front of the iPhone 17 is actually a bit more durable than the front display of the iPhone 16 Pro. So it is better when it comes to the ceramic shield too, but not better when it comes to the shell, or aka the metals used around the frames. Now when it comes to the displays, the iPhone 17 actually has one distinct advantage over the iPhone 16 Pro, and that is the 3000 nits of brightness, but it's also the same 120 hertz ProMotion HDR10 display with the same exact screen to body ratio. So they basically just put a brighter version of the iPhone 16 Pro, and it's also a little bit better scratch resistance than that one over there. This one also does have a better anti-reflective coating. There's basically just oleophobic on the 16 Pro, so there is potentially less glare on the 17. When talking about which is better, the 17 actually has a better display than the iPhone 16 Pro. It's very minor though. It's incredibly minor. Like if that's the reason you're getting the upgrade, or you're going to pick the 17, it's probably not a substantial difference. I mean, it's slightly brighter outdoor. Well, 1000 nits is noticeably brighter in sunlights, but the displays are so close, you would only notice those differences occasionally. But I have to be honest, the 17 is the better option when it comes to the display, which is really weird to say for a base model, because they've always been like trash compared to the Pro displays because of the 60 hertz, but not anymore. The iPhone 17 is the pick here if you care about having the best display here. Now, when it comes to software, both of them do run the same liquid glass iOS 26 on both of them, same control centers, same customizations when it comes to the clear icons if you want to do that, same features, call screening. You also have iMessage backgrounds, just a whole different UI look overall. You can do the clear icons on both. You could say that the iPhone 17 probably runs it a little bit better right now just because it's the latest phone. After a couple dot releases, the 16 Pro will probably run it equally as good, but I haven't had too many issues on the 16 Pro either. Just a couple of little weird glitches here and there with like the apps when you're changing the color of the icons. Nothing crazy though. A couple app crashes have occurred. But generally, the software is about the same. I don't think you're going to get way more updates here in terms of longevity, maybe a year better on the iPhone 17. So software it's just not much to talk about here. You're getting the same software experience. Sans the cameras, they will have different zooming, but that's really just because they have different hardware. They're not really that much different though. Just the camera has a couple different settings in software. Now for performance, there's another thing I want to discuss here. We do have a 5-core GPU on here, which is nice for the base model, but it's not the 6-core you'll find on the iPhone 16 Pro. So the 16 Pro is probably still the better option for the gaming. However, the CPU seems to be a bit better here, 4.25 gigahertz clock speed over 4.04 on the Apple A18 Pro chip. Both of them are going to do 8 gigabytes of RAM, so they're going to basically hold the same amount of applications in memory. I will say that the iPhone 17 I'd pick for the daily phone. I think if you are going to be gaming and stuff, I'd still pick the iPhone 16 Pro. It does have the better GPU, so your gaming performance, and if you're a heavier user, I do think the 16 Pro is still a bit better than the iPhone 17, but even heavy users could get along fine with the 17. But if you do video editing, or you do gaming, or maybe even heavy 4K video and use the camera a lot, that's probably the 16 Pro is the better option. But 17 is not too far off. It's an amazing value in performance for the base model. You've been seeing it in my speed tests if you've been watching them. It just does absolutely excellent. Now, one of the reasons I really loved the iPhone 16 Pro, and it was my main iPhone with my SIM in it for a while before the 17s launched, was because of their incredible battery life. I'm here to state though that the iPhone 17 actually performs a bit better, I found. I've only cycled it a few times, but it seems to last longer than my iPhone 16 Pro. The 16 Pro has 3582 battery. This one has 3692 and a more efficient A19 chip. So the iPhone 17 is probably the pick, I would say, for the battery life. You also do have the same 25 watt wireless charging via MagSafe and 4.5 watt reverse wired. You do have basically similar batteries, but just a bit bigger on the 17 with a more efficient chip. And that always leads to a little bit better battery life. The actual difference is probably in the neck of the woods of around 45 minutes to about an hour, somewhere in there. But I'll take what I can get. And the 17 being cheaper than the 16 Pro ever was, that's a win in my book. So let's talk about the cameras. I mean, it's always something when we're talking about the cameras between a base model and a Pro, because you really always have to weigh what you're using on the phone. I personally don't like the sacrifices I have to make with the base. It's one of the reasons why I cannot make the base my main phone all the time, is because I just don't like that I'm capped at 10x zoom. That zoom feels very dated to me. It feels very iPhone 10 like, because that had 10x zoom. I do like the ultra wide, and I do think for most people it's enough. For me personally, it's not enough. I'm not saying you're a creator though, or you're using all these cameras, and I do understand the perspective that not everybody uses this stuff, and it's enough and more than enough for most people. So for most people out there, this is more than enough. You have the ultra wide on the front. You have great main camera. It's the 48 megapixels, so that's good. And you also do have nice ultra wide. So this is a really, really sweet setup here for this camera on the iPhone 17. You do get the ultra wide at 48 megapixel too. So that is very similar to what we find on the iPhone 16 Pro. The main difference with the 16 Pro though is it doesn't have the center stage camera. So if you're a selfie fanatic, the 17 is better. But if you're more of a video and photo fanatic, I think the 16 Pro might be the better option still. It does zoom significantly further, 25 times, and still has that same 48 megapixel wide and standard. So I do think for true, photo and video takers, more professional like stuff, 16 Pro is still the winner. For everyday users using social media, they need to get their family photos in, they need to get their social media in. That center stage camera is a game changer. And the ultra wide with the 10x zoom, I think, is enough for the majority of average users. So when we talk about which is better, there is really no definitive choice here, because the 17 is actually, it's 50-50. The 17 is a better camera for front-facing camera users, and the 16 Pro is the better camera system for mostly rear. People use the rear cameras more. So that's really how I would look at it there. So let's talk about the audio. The audio on both of these is very, very solid. It's not quite max level good, but it's definitely good. It's definitely better than the Air with its single speaker. I will say I found the iPhone 17 and 16 Pro to hit nearly identical ranges of audio. So speakerphone calls, music, there is zilch. There's no difference, really. Basically nothing to speak of. So don't worry about getting the 17 and thinking, oh, my speakers aren't going to sound as good as a 16 Pro or a Pro model. The only ones that sound better is in the Max models. They're just a little bit louder in my experience than these two. But this is very solid for a base model. It sounds way better than the iPhone Air does, even. So, and that phone costs more. So this is, again, in the audio department, a solid value. When it comes to network connectivity and performance here, when it comes to like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, phone calls, things of that sort, I want to kind of clump these into one. The 16 Pro was very solid. I was able to get good signal even in some more harder to reach areas. I was already happy with this, but the 17 now has even better signal strength. I found it also does have better Bluetooth. It does have a bit faster Wi-Fi. I found on the iPhone 16 Pro, because it has 6E and 7. This one doesn't have 6E, but this has faster Bluetooth. So again, a little bit of a trade-off. At the end of the day, the Type-C connectivity is a bit better here. It's a USB-C Type 3.2. So this is a 2.0 on the iPhone 17. So that goes back to the camera. A lot of pros are going to be transferring files to devices, and having the faster transfer speeds on the 16 Pro makes a lot of sense. But for most users, they're probably not doing a lot of transferring for the base model, so it doesn't really matter too much. At the end of the day, when we're talking about phone calls, connectivity between Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, I find that the 16 Pro and the 17 are pretty closely matched. So I wouldn't really make that one of your main distinct features. Both of them do support emergency SOS, so that's pretty good, and messages via satellite, so they got those same special features going on. They both support Apple Watches, so that'll be good for you guys if you want to use an Apple Watch with your iPhones and the whole Apple ecosystem. So wrapping it up and giving you my final verdict now that I had both of these in the studio. The initial video, we kind of just talked about them prior to help you decide which to order, but I have to say my final verdict is I'm pretty drawn down the middle here, because there are different people for each of these. But if I wanted to say which one is the better choice, I think for about 90% of users, the 17 is the better choice. Just because it's cheaper, you can get it brand new. This one's going to be a little bit harder to find brand new. If you go up into storage tier, it's going to cost a bit more. But the 16 Pro is a much better deal for those of you who always wanted a premium iPhone. You want the triple camera setup. You love higher end iPhones. But it was always a little bit out of your price range, but you're waiting for the phone to come down. It'll be a better choice there for you. But I think for most users, the 17 is the better pick of these two for the majority of people out there. Let me know your thoughts on this one down below in the comment section. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will catch you all in the very next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.